Welcome to the Clinician's Corner, the go-to podcast for functional health practitioners who want to deepen their clinical skills and deliver exceptional client results. I'm your host, Margaret Floyd Barry, Master Restorative Health Practitioner and Executive Director of the Institute of Restorative Health. Each week, I interview leading experts to bring you the latest research, case studies, and evidence-based strategies for reversing chronic disease with actionable insights you can implement immediately to elevate your practice and transform how you deliver health. Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the RWS Clinician's Corner. We have one of our own with us today. This is going to be so fun. We have Danielle, or Dani Hamilton, who is a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. She is a restorative wellness practitioner and a blood sugar expert who helps people heal their metabolism using a personalized circadian, seasonal, and quantum approach. Very different from what we normally talk about. This is going to be such a juicy conversation. After reversing her own PCOS, hypoglycemia, and acne by addressing blood sugar and metabolic health, she began helping others do the same. And when some clients still struggle despite doing everything right, Dani turned to nature, light, water, magnetism, and seasonal rhythms, things that we're going to talk about at length today for that deeper healing. She's the host of Light Up Your Metabolism and the creator of the transformative blood sugar mastery program. Dani, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Margaret.
It's so great to have you here. I would love to start off with your personal story. Tell us what both brought you to this work overall, but specifically what brought you to this really interesting niche and focus of working with the power of light and seasonal rhythms.
Yeah, so my story, I'm going to give the abridged version so we have time for more important things that I want to teach you guys. But I always struggled with, unbeknownst to me, I struggled with blood sugar issues my whole life. And I had allergies, asthma, sinus infections after getting my tonsils out. And I found a paleo diet and all those things went away, not the PCOS yet. And so the allergies, asthma, sinus infections all cleared up from eating whole real food. So I was on this paleo train, and I was, to anyone who would listen, I'm like, food heals, we've been lied to, all this stuff back in 2012. And then I was eating this really healthy paleo diet, and I was living in Miami, Florida. And then I moved to New York City, and it was winter, and I was eating the same foods. And all of a sudden I started gaining weight. I missed my period for 6 months. I started to, instead of having just cyclical acne with my cycle, it was all the time, all over my forehead, all over my cheeks. I was like, thank God I have bangs, and wow. I was really disheartened because I knew that the answer wasn't to go back to eating processed foods, but I was like, I'm eating the healthiest foods I can find. Like, everything is grass fed and organic. And I would go to farmers markets, and I was eating really healthy, and my health was just deteriorating. And so I did move back to Miami, Florida, and I was there, and I didn't get better right away. And then I heard a podcast that said PCOS is the diabetes of the ovaries. And I was like, oh my gosh, like there's a blood sugar component to this. And this was before I had gone to NTP school, and I didn't know anything about blood sugar. I just knew that, okay, the patients that I had as a speech therapist who had diabetes needed the pink sugar packet, and a lot of them had amputations. That's literally all I knew about diabetes. And so I was like, that didn't relate to me, right? So I started looking back, and after learning about blood sugar issues, I was like, oh my gosh, I think half of my personality traits are actually blood sugar issues. Like, I was a foodie, so I always had to carry snacks with me wherever I went. I said, I don't have a sweet tooth. All my teeth are sweet. And I would constantly, I'd be the hangry one. And I'm like, oh my God, those are fixable health, responses. They're not personality traits. And so I did a ketogenic paleo diet. I did some circadian aligned fasting, which we'll get into. And I reversed my PCOS. And then I went to nutritional therapy school. I did RWS, and I started really diving into how to help other people with blood sugar issues. I get a lot of people with hypoglycemia, and that's what I had. I had hypo, and not like the mainstream is talking all about strategies for people with high blood sugar. And I do work with those people as well. But I tend to get the people who are like, oh my God, my blood sugar is crashing. Like I can't not eat between meals. I can't lower my carbs. I can't work out. I can't be in the sun in the midday because their stress bucket's overflowing. So I started working with all different people with metabolic health issues, and so many of them got so much better. I mean, reversing type 2 diabetes, reversing insulin resistance, losing weight. Like the transformations were just like, I have chills because it's just so amazing, as I'm sure you know, as all of us know, to guide someone towards this huge transformation is so just amazing to experience and such a gift. And some of my clients were doing all the things that I was telling them to do, but they weren't getting better. And so I'd have people like, no matter what I do, my blood sugar is at 104 in the morning. Like it's good the rest of the day, but I can't get it down. And then people with stubborn weight and people just, the list goes on where all of a sudden the traditional things that I've been trying haven't been helping. And so I started seeing people online talk about things like light and grounding. And I learned that infrared light, like the kind that we put in these panels,
Right.
and like infrared light, which is about 49% of the sun's emissions, it lowers blood sugar. I was like, wait, how is that happening? Because it makes our mitochondria utilize glucose more efficiently. So it actually lowers our blood sugar. Yeah. So I thought about, okay, when the sun is rising, the sun is really rich at that time in infrared light. And when we ground, we're also pulling in these electrons. And our body actually is electric. Like I didn't realize that, but then I thought, oh, if I stick my finger in a socket, yeah, we're electric. We conduct electricity, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about all this, and I'm thinking, okay, even the mitochondria, they need electrons to go down the electron transport chain to create energy for us. We get electrons from food, but we also get electrons from grounding, from sunlight.
The Clinician's Corner podcast is sponsored by the Institute of Restorative Health, the premier clinical training program for health practitioners who want to learn how to finally get to the root source of their clients' health concerns and help them reverse complex health challenges and chronic illness. You can't afford to keep guessing. Your clients can't afford it either. Today's clients are sicker than ever before. Their health histories are more complex than ever, and you simply can't deliver results they need or build the practice you desire without the right clinical skills. Enter the Institute of Restorative Health. Our clinically proven, systematic approach to restoring balance within the body has helped thousands of practitioners transform their clients' lives, grow their business, and change the way health is delivered. Study with us to develop and master the clinical skills and confidence you need to help your clients feel better faster. Learn how to work with advanced lab testing to identify imbalances, craft custom targeted protocols that truly resolve your clients' health issues, and deliver consistently life-changing results. Visit instituteofrestorativehealth.com to apply today and secure your spot.
Yeah.
Can we kind of take a step back and just, because you describe these as the ultimate foundation for metabolic health, and that's a bold statement and not something that we hear about pretty much at all.
Yeah.
So I would love you to just kind of start at the beginning and help us unpack the role. I mean, let's start with light. I know that it intimately relates to circadian rhythm, but let's start with light and the role that it plays with our mitochondria.
Yeah. And we have to talk about circadian rhythm as it relates to light. So that's a sort of a perfect segue. So when we think about circadian rhythm, I don't know about you, but when we hear that term being sort of thrown around a lot lately. And when I first heard it, I'm like, okay, light and dark cycles, right? Like, or sleep and wake cycles. But I didn't really know much more than that. And so I started to develop some analogies to help people understand how important our circadian rhythm is and what it actually is. And so our circadian rhythm is based on our 24-hour cycle because we live on a planet with a 24-hour day. If we lived on Neptune, it would be 17 hours. If we lived on Venus, it would be like 2,153 or something like that. So hours. So this is because we live on this planet. And so our body takes direction from light. Light is the primary time giver or Zeitgeber to the body. So the body is always trying to figure out what time it is. And why is that? So think about if you took a really long nap and you wake up and you're like super confused. You're like, oh my gosh, where am I? What time is it? Who am I? We immediately try to orient, and we have a little moment of panic when we don't know what time it is. And this is in our conscious mind. So if our conscious mind is trying to figure out what time it is, why does it need to know what time it is? So we know what to do, right? How do I know to be on this podcast with you? How come I'm not hanging up Christmas decorations? Why am I not brushing my teeth and putting on my pajamas? Because I know it's not time for that. And I know that I do things better at certain times of the day. Why did we schedule this for 2 p.m. and not 2 a.m? Because we are both more alert. We're more articulate. We can problem solve. We can go out and hunt and find food at certain times of the day better than others. We're better at resting, repairing, rejuvenating in the evening time. So our body has, trillions of tasks to do in every single cell at all times of day, and it needs to be organized somehow. And so the way that the body has organized this is that it gets direction from the sun about what time it is. That light comes in through our eyes. It goes to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN, which is like our master clock in our hypothalamus. And that master clock tells the body what time it is, and it communicates to all these little peripheral clocks. So we have basically clocks in all of our cells because everything needs to be on schedule. And so I like to think about light as the conductor of the orchestra. And so when this light is conducting the orchestra of hormones, of neurotransmitters, of different genes to turn on and off, things really run smoothly. But the light in our environment is no longer just the sun, unfortunately. We have a lot of other light sources in our modern life that I think act like little kids from the audience at the opera or at the orchestra, and they go up and they start to conduct the orchestra, right? Like, and then it's mayhem and the violins aren't coming in and they're clashing with the tubas or whatever it is. And so that's what I think of, like our cell phones, our computers, our TVs, the street lights, the lights in our offices. They're these like false conductors confusing the heck out of our biology. They're telling it to do certain things at the wrong time, and there's huge consequences of this. So another analogy really quickly I like to use for the circadian rhythm is thinking about our body like a breakfast restaurant. So in the morning, the workers come in and they prepare the restaurant and they get things open and the kitchen starts and the cooks come in and they're making food and they're delivering it to the people, to the patrons who are sitting. They eat, they clean up, and at the end of the night, things start to wind down and everybody's cleaning up and placing orders for the next day and taking out the garbage. But what happens if a giant party comes in right as they were about to turn the lights off? And you could tell I've never worked in a restaurant. Everyone who's worked in a restaurant is probably like, this would never happen, but just go with it. So let's say this giant party comes in at like 5 o'clock when this restaurant was supposed to be closing. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, the kitchen has to start up. Half the staff already went home. We don't have enough things. Everyone's tired. They're exhausted. Mistakes are happening. The garbage doesn't get taken out. It's overflowing. They miss orders for the next day. The workers stay super late. They forget to turn off the close sign. They wake up the next day. They're coming in late. They're not showing up for their shift. It's chaos, right? That is a body that has had the circadian rhythm. That first example is like, that's everything working properly at the right time. We don't forget anything. Everything runs like clockwork. But then if we're sending signals to our body like, hey, it's 12 o'clock when really it's 8 p.m., we're going to run certain processes when our body is not equipped for it. And what's going to happen, a lot of things get missed. A lot of the repair processes that have to do with melatonin actually get missed. So how do we ensure that our body's clock is aligned with the sun? That's basically what the circadian rhythm is, that our body's schedule needs to be on the sun schedule, not on our work schedule, not on our kids' sports schedule, on the sun schedule all the time. And keep in mind, the further from the equator you live, the more difference, the more variation you're going to have throughout the year. So going back to light is the primary Zeitgeber time giver to our body. And so we want to think about aligning ourselves with the sun and being exposed to the sun with our eyes and our skin, which all have melanopsin receptors for that actually blue colored light. So there's a lot of different components of sunlight. There's parts we can see, visible light, all the colors. And then there's different types of light that we can't see, like infrared and ultraviolet. And so all of these lights have really, really important, they do really important things for the human body. Every single light that comes from the sun is really important for us. So when the sun starts to come up, actually before the sun even rises, it kind of looks blue out, but there's actually not that much blue light there yet. But that light before daybreak, before the sunrise, is actually loaded with infrared light. So this is, like I said, that light that we have in all those panels. And this is a very powerful healing light. And it does things like reduces inflammation. It heals sun damage. It builds collagen. It reverses wrinkles. And then it does some things on more of a quantum level, where we go down to like the actual photons, the electrons, the neutrons, the protons, and things. And so it helps energize the electrons in our body and expand what's called the exclusion zone of water in our body. That's the water that our mitochondria make. And so when we always think about the mitochondria making ATP as energy, but what we're really finding is that this is a new theory, that it's actually the water that the body makes that's actually the energy currency. And the reason why this water is so important is that because water that our mitochondria makes splits into a charge. So a glass of water on the table has a negative charge, but like if you stuck, litmus paper in it or whatever, it would be neutral. But the water in our body, when it touches what's called a hydrophilic surface or a water-loving surface, which is our body's tissues, it separates into this charge into negative and positive. And what is a negative and a positive next to each other? It's a battery. So in this negative zone, it's called the exclusion zone because it excludes all things that are not electrons. And electrons are these tiny negatively charged particles. They're more waves. Particles are, we'll go with it. So, but they exclude everything that's not an electron. And that's really important because they can, when we have this really strong exclusion zone around our cells, it keeps out things like heavy metals and toxins from getting into the cells. So this is cellular hydration, really, really important. And we make cellular water from getting light on our skin, and the far infrared light from the sun expands that exclusion zone. And so getting in the sun is amazing this infrared light is really important for this exclusion zone. It's hard to go into all the things that it affects, but it's really, really important. When this exclusion zone degrades, to give you just another little example, we often get histamine responses. So that's a cell danger response. So that's why grounding, as we're pulling in these electrons, the grounding piece, we pull in the electrons and the electrons go down the electron transport chain and make water. Same thing when we get these electrons from sunlight. That's typically UV light. We get the electrons. Food, we get electrons. It's not the only source of energy. We often think about, well, I get my energy from food. We also get energy from the sun, like plants. So infrared light, circling back, that light also helps our mitochondria utilize glucose faster. So it does lower our blood sugar. So what I tell my clients to do is go outside first thing and get sunrise light in your eyes and on as much of your skin as you can. And this is going to support your blood sugar response in the morning and that cortisol awakening response. This is often where if people are opening their phone first thing and they're getting a blast of blue light, we have to now talk about what blue light does. Blue light is very important. Blue light from the sun is highly important. Without it, we would just be sleeping on the floor all day because we need it to turn on our circadian rhythm. That's the light. That's the color of light that our suprachiasmatic nucleus adjusts to, it tunes to. So the blue light from the sun is actually really good. And the blue light is great because it is always paired with red and infrared. So we have to remember those things are coupled when it comes to the sunlight. And so this blue light starts to emerge after the sun crosses the horizon. And that blue light tells our body what time it is. And it starts to do things like raise our cortisol. It also raises blood sugar and insulin through this POMC pathway. So think about blue light as raising your cortisol. And so as the sun comes up, the cortisol gently rises, and then it peaks in the sky and the cortisol peaks, and then it starts to come down and the cortisol comes down. That's where we get our curve from. And it counteracts with melatonin. Melatonin is the opposite. And so melatonin should be it should be lowering in the morning, and then it should be rising at night, and it's highest while we're sleeping. So these hormones oppose each other, and these are our master circadian hormones. They're very important. So we need that cortisol awakening response, but what we don't want is a giant burst of cortisol that stays high all day, right? And that's a lot of people nowadays. They're skipping meals, they're running on cortisol all morning, and their blood sugar actually stays super stuck high because they are not seeing light and not also getting that benefit of that balancing effect of the infrared. So if we just get the unopposed artificial blue light from inside, we're not getting that healing, balancing infrared light as well.
Question for you on that. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. This is fantastic and just great detail to explain a lot of the things. We hear kind of like little sidebars that are extrapolated from this, but getting the full explanation of how all of this is interplaying together is really fascinating. Questions for you. You talk about the infrared light, that is just super high right before sunrise. I love that. I get up very, very early, often before sunrise. I'm a big, I love to run as well and like be out there as the sun is rising. So I'm like, look, there's all sorts of extra benefits to doing that. Is it that the infrared is highest at that time of day? Like, does it have its own flow? And then I know that we talk about like the red lights and things that are more soothing kind of, and think about sunset. Yeah. Do these lights, like, talk to me about the rhythm of these different lights and how that interplay is influencing things?
So I believe that this light, it's really just because of the angle, like what's hitting the earth. And so in the morning, the predominant light, yes, there's visible light, of course, because we can see, but there's also a huge amount of infrared, and there's not yet ultraviolet A or ultraviolet B. That only comes when the sun hits a certain point in the sky. And so it's really just how high the sun is in the sky, where it is in the sky, that determines what light is reaching us here on Earth. And so it's not that it really has a rhythm like that. It's more what is available at each time. So infrared is always available in the sun, all sunlight, all times of year, all times of day. Anytime the sun is up, anytime you see like a little bit of light from the sun, you are getting infrared as well as visible light. Those are always present. The next type of light to appear would be ultraviolet A light, and that is in all locations, all times of year as well. And UVB light is the only light that we can make vitamin D from. Many people don't know this. Many people think just go out at sunrise and I'll get my vitamin D. But that is not accurate. You can only make vitamin D from UVB light, which is the light that we associate with like summer, really warm months, or if you're at the equator, it is available all year, but this is going to depend on your location and the time of year. So it's more like the light is coming in, but there's infrared all the time. And so it's a really cool point to bring up. The question that you asked makes me want to share that infrared light is always present. And so that light is healing and soothing. Think about every time you go out, you get the benefits of a red light therapy panel at all times. So even when there's these harsher ultraviolet light, we are still being protected by the red and infrared light that is always present. Does that make sense?
That's really helpful. That makes a lot of sense. I have a question that might be like the dummiest of dummy questions, but I'm thinking it. Somebody else is thinking it. Does sunscreen block infrared light?
Sunscreen does not block infrared light, as far as I know. It blocks 90 to 100% of vitamin D production. Yeah. I would love to talk more about sunscreen, but we're missing a time of day. So I want to go in order. So can we circle
100%. Okay, we'll come back to that. I just was like, oh my gosh, infrared is so important.
It's so important, right?
And are we blocking it? Okay, let's continue. We'll come back to vitamin D and
perfect. All that stuff. Yeah. Okay, so So first of all, I want to tell you guys about an app that's really helpful. My friend Sarah made it. It's called My Circadian app, all one word. My code is Dani, H-H-D-A-N-I. HH. In case you want a code, there is a free version. And this app tells you all the times of day where all this different light is present. So for example, the sun rose today here in Austin, Texas at 6:40 a.m. And then at 7:35, a new type of light appears in the sky, and that is that ultraviolet A or UVA light. This light is very demonized because they say, oh, UVA is aging. That you have to hear what it does because you're going to want to like bathe in this light. So, okay, so ultraviolet A light does so many amazing things. The first thing it does is it drives the conversion of a bunch of aromatic amino acids into certain neurotransmitters, things like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. We also get beta endorphins. Isn't it funny that all my clients who are on mood medications need to take their medications early in the morning? It's almost as if there's something built in that we can experience those benefits from, right? So we get all these mood boosting effects. It also conjugates amino acids, tyrosine specifically, into thyroid hormones, T3 and T4. So we get a metabolic boost. Isn't that funny? When do our clients need to take thyroid medications? Oh, in the morning. So we're building all of these amazing neurotransmitters and hormones just from this light hitting our eyes. The other thing is that, I forgot to mention something important about infrared. Infrared light is responsible for making nearly 95% of our melatonin. 95%. So we build so much of our melatonin during the day, and that's actually made locally in the mitochondria. And that is a very powerful antioxidant. It's not only for sleep. And then UVA light drives us to make turn the tryptophan into 5-HTP into serotonin, and the serotonin gets converted into melatonin in the pineal gland at night. And so we make melatonin from morning light, from light all day long. So that is a really important thing to remember if anyone is struggling to heal and repair. Because what I forgot to say about the circadian rhythm stuff is that if we are out of sync, we're going to not be able to do all the processes, right? Like think about that restaurant. We're missing things. And so what gets, left off is a lot of these repair processes, but also the body functions really well in like it does certain things at that certain time. So it's taking this information. So with the UVA, we also do something really important is that we start to build a pigment in our skin called melanin. Many of you guys have heard of melanin. They make batteries out of melanin. This substance is extremely powerful. I think about melanin like I think about chlorophyll in plants. This is the pigment that helps us sequester the sun's energy and use it for our own energy. Melanin can split the water molecule into oxygen and molecular hydrogen. Maybe some of you have heard of hydrogen therapy, right? Hydrogen, it's the most powerful antioxidant. Why is it so powerful as an antioxidant? Because it is both a particle and a wave, and it can get through things. Many of our antioxidants, like CoQ10 and vitamin C, you think that molecule could fit into our mitochondria? Think again. No, it can't, right? So this is just a natural source of getting antioxidants that are selective, that are sort of smart, instead of just dumping a bunch of antioxidants into our body when the reason we have oxidation is oftentimes because of mitochondrial signaling. They're making these reactive oxygen species saying like, hey, there's something wrong. And then we are so smart in functional medicine. We're like, you need antioxidants because you have a lot of inflammation. So that's why I say put the body in the sun and it starts to regulate on its own. So melanin does also some other amazing things, but one of them is that it acts like a natural sunscreen. And so it's these protective compounds in our skin that help us to be able to stay out longer in UVB light to soak up more vitamin D without burning, without damaging our skin. So if anyone has sort of pale skin, this may have happened to them in their life, that they can sort of understand the protective benefit of melanin. So you ever go to the beach and you have like a completely different bathing suit, like tan line, let's say you wore something that has like a racer back, so you have this, sort of pale stripe on your back or something, and you go to the beach or you're at the pool and you come home and you realize, oh my gosh, I got super burnt on the spots, on the white spots, right? The tan part didn't get burned, but the white skin got burned. That is the difference between, it's the same exact sun exposure, but that's the difference between having melanin and not having melanin in that spot. And so if we think about it, going back to our ancestors, people used to live at appropriate places on the globe for the amount of sunlight they got. They say life, let's say, started in Africa near the equator, and then we supposedly drifted and we migrated, right? And what happened? We lost pigment as we went up north, as we went down south. We lost pigment to our skin. Why do we not have as much melanin anymore? Because we would have died. We literally would have died. Why? Because there were no vitamin D supplements back then, it's another topic we'll get into. But we would not have been able to sequester enough vitamin D from the sun. So this brings up a really important point, that in modern day, it's a really big issue, like this whole sunscreen, and the sun's trying to kill us, and everyone should wear sunscreen inside. Even Black people should wear sunscreen. I'm like, where is this information coming from? Because people with very dark skin have natural sunscreen. And so they should not be wearing sunscreen. We should not be wearing sunscreen indoors. If you look at the classic sunscreen, any sort of over-the-counter sunscreen, chemical sunscreen you get, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, these ingredients are actually known carcinogens, or they break down into known carcinogens after they're exposed to UV light. They're baking into our skin in the sun, and many of the ingredients are derived from petroleum. And so we're putting petroleum derivative cancer-causing ingredients on our skin and saying this is helpful. There are 0 studies linking the sun to cancer. There are no conclusive studies showing that the sun causes cancer. However, we can have user error for sure, right? That's not to say, I say that and that doesn't mean, oh, I'm just going to be Irish and go to the beach in Miami. No, we have to be smart about the sun, because remember, our ancestors were aligned and they lived all day, mostly outside. So they were seeing the sun, they were getting the UVA, they were building the melanin, they were building up what we call a solar callus, or as we used to say on Long Island, I grew up on Long Island, we called it a base tan. And so, if you've watched Jersey Shore, you've met people from Long Island. There's kind of the same thing in that idea of being tan all the time. We always knew you had to build a base tan, and that was so you didn't get burned. So now we have these people all over the map. We're all mixed up. And so what happens if you are a skin type that's there's something called the Fitzpatrick skin type. It's something you can look up. There's only 6 types. And so the palest is a 1, and the people with the darkest skin are a 6. I'm about a 3 to give you, I'm half Italian. And so I get a little bit of, I get pretty dark. So I'm about a 3 on the Fitzpatrick scale. So this is a good number to know about yourself, just to know how sensitive you are to the sun. And also to see okay, where are my ancestors from? I mean, some of my ancestors are from Sweden, but I do have sort of Italian skin, right? So I have to be careful. I get real, real, real pale, very pale, but I can also get really dark. But some people, everyone is different. So if you are someone who's a Fitzpatrick 1, let's say you're Irish and you live in Miami, Florida, you are at a mismatch. And this is a dangerous mismatch specifically for your skin. You can get vitamin D sufficiency so easily with very little light. I have friends in Ireland and I follow their stories. I'm like, you're wearing a jacket? It's July. And a hat? I'm like, she's like, oh, it's cloudy. We don't really get a lot of sun. They have so many clouds that their skin is so pale, so that they get a tiny bit of sun, boom, they pull it in and they make enough vitamin D to be sufficient for the whole year. That's also, freckles are melanin sequestered, right? So
Right.
When someone is that means, so if they move, let's say, to Miami, Florida, where the sun is really strong, they have to be extra careful. They can't go in the sun probably at peak hours, definitely not right away. Maybe they can build up to that, but we need to work on the early morning, the UVA, and then do this gradual small amounts of time. And once you've reached sufficiency, you seek shade. Shade is filled with infrared light. Infrared light heals the skin, reverses sun damage, remember, all those things. And then you can wear clothing, you can wear hats, and mineral sunscreen as a last resort. We don't want to use mineral sunscreen off the bat because then we're blocking all that vitamin D. We want to do this method to develop that base tan to be able to get the vitamin D. So then the opposite problem, where someone has very dark skin and moves further from the equator, that difference is not affecting the skin as much as it's affecting this person or these people systemically. This is a dangerous mismatch. So people in, Irish people in Florida can cover up, but someone who's from Jamaica who moves to Canada is at a real disadvantage, because now they are at risk of vitamin D deficiency, autoimmune conditions, metabolic issues, diabetes, cancer, you name it. I mean, if you look at a map of MS, you see that the further you are from the equator, the more likely you are to develop MS. And then we actually see the opposite with melanoma. So in case people are suspicious, the further you are from, actually the same thing. So the further you are from the equator, the higher rates of melanoma. The closer you are to the equator, Hawaii and Florida have a lower incidence of melanoma than places like Minnesota or Wisconsin. So,
and is that because of the fact that there is this, that they're burning more because they don't build up that base, or what would you attribute that to? That would be the vitamin D, the low vitamin D you're talking about?
Yes. Okay. And melanomas are often found. A friend just told me this story. His brother had a bunch of spots, and the spots that were not in the sun were the ones that were positive for melanoma. So the sun is actually anti-cancer. It's actually anti-metastasis. It supports and regulates our immune system, especially UVB light and vitamin D. So this UVB light is so demonized, and meanwhile, we need it. If you don't go in UV light, there's a very high risk of developing Parkinson's. Parkinson's is a dysregulation of of melanin. So the brain is losing its melanin. And so so that person, these people with darker skin who move up, they're at a big mismatch. But UVB light doesn't only make vitamin D. It does a lot of things. And vitamin D is not what we think. It's not just D3, cholecalciferol. That's not it. Vitamin D in our body that we make from the sun is sulfated. So it goes through different conversions. There's more than 15 metabolites of vitamin D. There's things like lumisterol, tachysterols, things that help us to burn fat better, things that help to make sure we never overdose on vitamin D. You cannot overdose on vitamin D from the sun. You can absolutely do it from capsules. We get very deficient in magnesium from taking vitamin D supplements. That doesn't happen in the sun. We do still need magnesium, of course, but that doesn't happen. We also get tons of immune modulating benefits. And the way that we test for vitamin D is very off. We need to be testing not only the inactive form of vitamin D, the storage D that we test, we also need to be looking at the active D. And we want to make sure that the active D is not way, way, way higher. We want it sort of like a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio of the active to inactive. So there's so many benefits of UVB light. It also excites those electrons and gives us energy. It regulates our insulin sensitivity. It improves our leptin sensitivity. It improves blood glucose. It like, there's just so many things that it does. When that light hits our stomach, it changes our gut bacteria to be better able to digest simple sugars, which makes sense because when that light is present, what's growing? Fruit, right? So it's like the it's just so wild that the more you learn about it, the more you see like, oh my goodness, we were meant to eat these foods at this time because the light is helping us. And so, yeah, I'll let you keep asking. I have so much more to say, but I'll let you direct the conversation more.
Well, what I want to do, I'm really aware of time, and I want to make sure that we get into strategies that practitioners can use with their clients, because I can hear their questions already. Like, I love this, understanding kind of that mismatch of the Irish, living in Florida, or someone with much darker skin living up, the Jamaican living up in Canada. But I want to, this is the reality also, as well as the fact that we live largely indoors. We do wake up with screens. We have light that we're using at night, which we haven't even gotten to that point. But of course, that's messing with things and at the latter half of the day. So what are some strategies that practitioners can use? I mean, you've given an amazing nugget here, like being outside with as much skin exposed as possible at sunrise. That's gold. What other things can people do, and how can they build up their clients' sun tolerance so that they aren't living in as much fear of the sun as they tend to?
Yeah. So I think that we have to finish out the day because it all relates. So we talked about getting out as much with sunrise to sync that circadian clock. When you see that sun, you don't have to actually see the sun. You can just see the sky. When that sun crosses the horizon and you're outside, that syncs your clock to the sun. Like we talked about at the beginning, getting all that light is prepping the skin for stronger sunlight later in the day. It's also a really good time for people to be outside who do not tolerate midday sun. We have to build them up with infrared light. I have yet to meet anyone who can't tolerate infrared light. So that's good news, because I know a lot of people, their clients are not going to tolerate UVB yet. My hypoglycemics cannot be out in that heat. They crash. So we build up that tolerance. And one of the ways you do that is by supporting the mitochondria at sunrise and syncing the circadian rhythm. Then they will start sleeping better because they're getting, like I said, all the melatonin, it's setting those clocks. Then we want to get outside, and then I have to back up. I have to talk about meal timing. Meal timing is the secondary Zeitgeber to our body, or time giver. Many people have been skipping breakfast since 2018, and we see a lot of dysregulation when this happens. We see a lot of people who are overly stressed. They're doing exercise or waking up early to exercise, but not eating first. And if there is leptin dysregulation, if there's metabolic issues, if there's cortisol issues, hormone issues, chronic fatigue, you name it, we need to be sending signals of safety to the body. And the way we do that is eating a breakfast rich in protein, healthy fats, fiber, and potentially some carbohydrates, depending on someone's leptin. we could talk all day. So getting that.
Can I ask a question about that? Because that's an important one. And that's just like totally maybe asking a personal question. But for those people, because I am that person who gets up at 4:30 in the morning, often working out by 5. That doesn't leave a big window for consuming a full breakfast before working out. Is it sufficient to have something small, like a little protein drink and an apple or something like this? Or does it really need to kind of have the stress mitigating? I agree with, and it makes so much sense that the body needs to be signaling. We need to signal safety before we add more stress by going to the gym and pumping iron, right? Like, I get that.
Yeah.
What is it like? Talk just logistics for people who get up crazy early and need to, have that life.
So I would, if that's you and you don't have health issues, you can do what you're doing. And I would say maybe try to have something smaller, but to the 93% of people with metabolic dysregulation, and most of our clients, I would say no working out at that time. That is not the signal that I want to send to my body. I do not want to wake up and have my body think that I'm running from a tiger without nourishment. So I say for most of my clients that I see, absolutely nourish before movement, because otherwise it often is then interpreted by the body as running from a tiger instead of, oh, look at this amazing hormetic stressor, I'm going to get stronger. And so I recommend eating within about an hour of sunrise, and that way the body is getting that nourishment and doesn't need to pump out more cortisol to keep you going throughout the day. This has been a really big game changer. I know a lot of people get benefits from intermittent fasting at first because it is an acute stressor, because it's an acute stressor. Right. And then what happens to an acute stressor when it becomes chronic? It becomes dysregulating, right? So we no longer get those benefits. And some people can go 2 years and they're like benefiting from the skipping breakfast. But then what do? We're most insulin sensitive early in the day. Then we shift our eating window back and we eat all our meals when we're less insulin sensitive. We eat later at night or bigger meals at night. And then what happens in the evening? We are digesting instead of detoxing. We are disrupting leptin signaling because we get a release of insulin. And insulin and leptin, which is a satiety hormone, but also a master circadian hormone, compete for docking space at the hypothalamus. And so if our body can't communicate with leptin's going to go up there and say, hey, here's how much stored energy Dani has on her body. She's got this much energy in the form of glycogen in her liver. She's got this much body fat. She's got this many electrons. Like, this is our charge. And so that's an important thing to know. So then tomorrow between meals, my body's like, oh yeah, hey, remember she has that sugar in the liver? Go ahead and just burn that. But if leptin didn't communicate with the brain at night, the body's like, oh my God, Dani's starving. Tomorrow, wake up, increase her anxiety. So she goes out to eat, make sure you raise her appetite, and there's no stored anything on the body. So just, we can't use any of that. So then these are our people who cannot burn body fat because they can't access it, because the body doesn't think it's there. And these are my hypoglycemics who try to go from one meal to the next, but they can't because they ran out of energy from the first meal, but do not have that backup system because their body doesn't know they have glycogen to burn in the liver, or they have B6 deficiency or whatever because they can't, Anyway, so there's all different things happening with the leptin, and leptin is a hormone of light. So if we want to fix our leptin resistance, we need to fix the light. So eating in the morning is really powerful, and having coffee after breakfast is really important, because what happens when we drink coffee on an empty stomach? It actually spikes stress hormones more, especially the epinephrine, and that drives more insulin resistance. It's also an appetite suppressant, and then we eat later. That was me. I would wake up, have coffee, spike my stress hormones too much, and then not eat until 10 in the morning. But what does my body want? It wants a signal of safety. That our world is more stressful than ever before, and I guarantee your clients need safety signals throughout the day. And getting enough protein to also signal to leptin, hey, we're fed, we're good, we're nourished. That takes the stress off the body and gives that really beautiful signal to our mitochondria that are not only energy factories, but they are sentient sensors. They're scanning the internal milieu, they're scanning the external environment for threats. So we want to say, hey, there's food. And if we have coffee after the food or even with the food, you're going to get a lot of pushback on this one, guys. Just wait for it. People are like, they're like, don't take away my coffee. I'm like, I'm not, I'm just moving it. They're like, this coffee one is so hard. I'm like, you're still having it. Just have a few bites of food first. They go, what if there's protein powder in it? No, that's not food you chew. Food you chew is different. So we have the meal timing, and we also want to eat when the sun is up. This gets harder in the winter. Do your best, but eating when the sun is up is going to be best for our insulin sensitivity. And then in the evening, we have to talk about the evening light. So we build up time in infrared. We build up time in UVA. That's a really good time to then go for a walk, right? Right after breakfast and coffee. Then we go for a walk. Then we do our exercise. And that's that mid-morning light that is so beautiful for us, for our mood, for our hormones, for our thyroid, for our metabolism, to be outside at that time. That, I think, is the ideal window to exercise if possible. I know people have jobs, but that would be the best time. That would be my recommendation. And then we gradually build up in UVB if that's possible, to get all the vitamin D and to take advantage of the window if you live in a place that doesn't have this in the winter. Very important. Then if we expose ourselves to UVB light, that is also a hormetic stressor. That's what we have to look at. Just like exercise, UVB light exposure is a hormetic stressor. Not enough, we don't get the benefit. Too much, we have problems, right? Same thing. Like it's not more, like too much is not good. Too little is not good. We need that Goldilocks amount of vitamin D and UVB light. Then it's very important, after we expose ourselves to this, that we then again sunset light. What is sunset light rich in? Infrared light. It's like a giant red light therapy panel. If you want to get more direct light, you can use your red light therapy panel. Red light therapy panels do not replace sunrise because there's no blue light. They do not replace sunrise, but they can replace sunset. Sunset is not as important as sunrise. It still has benefits, but if you're going to choose one, sunrise always. So we get out in that sunset light to start to heal. And the other important thing that's looked over is that in order to fully heal from the sun, from UVB light, we need darkness. We need this for everything, not only for our skin. We need darkness at night so that the melatonin can be released. So our pineal melatonin is only released if there is darkness. Remember, blue light tells the body to make cortisol, blood sugar, and insulin. That is the very last things we want it to be signaled to our body when the sun has set. So when the sun has set, insulin clocks out, we're not eating, kitchen closed, and now it's rest and repair mode. We want to lean into things like incandescent light bulbs. I have this on as I'm sitting here to bring more infrared into my environment. Think about if I was living outside. I'm usually outside. The bugs are really loud right now, so I didn't do this podcast outside, but the infrared light I'm bringing this into my home because our windows block it out. Our lights no longer have it. So there are websites. I do have my favorites guide where I have a lot of websites, links and things like that. But 1000bulbs.com, amazing website. They have a huge incandescent section. I recommend that website. I mean, these light bulbs are like 53 cents. So we are talking affordable, doable changes for our people. This is from a company called Strainless Lighting. It's a sweet college kid. He's trying to make better lighting. So I wanted to support him. He makes these little bases. It's great. But this light is so calming at night. There's such a difference. I recommend getting rid of all the LED light bulbs. I even prefer incandescents to a red LED light at night sometimes because those LED lights they're often too bright and they often release a lot of EMFs. And so there is what's called on a lux meter on this app that I told you guys about, my Circadian app. Mm-hmm. So this lux meter takes, you point it at something and it tells you how bright it is. So this inside right now is 1,996 lux looking at the window. That's not that bright for daytime. It's actually too dim for daytime. If I went outside, it would be like 91,000 lux. And it's only 1,900. Then, right. But at night, after the sun sets, we went 10 lux or below. So remember, we want the lighting to be dim, 10 lux or below. We want it to be warm. We want it to be like mimicking fire, right? That would be the only light that our ancestors had access to. We also want it to be low to the ground because the melanopsin receptors are in our eyes and they're set up for overhead light because that's where the sun was. Fires were on the ground. So the first thing we can do for our clients is tell them to turn off overhead lights at night, replace all the bulbs with incandescents, get some dimmable lights that like a Himalayan salt lamp is a great example. Beeswax unscented candles, great things to use. If they have a red LED light bulb, sure, you can use that. But you can get incandescent ones and orange lens or red lens blue blockers after the sun sets. These block all blue light, which is very important. And so even if your light environment is great in your house, I'm sure your neighbors don't do this. And the street lights are filtering in and cars are coming by if you live in a neighborhood. So those are all things we can do to prevent being exposed to this blue light, and that would dysregulate our body.
So many follow-up questions, and I'm acutely aware of the time right now. So just a couple of them.
Sure.
I saw a question in the chat about sunglasses. So assuming no sunscreen, but sunglasses, how is that affecting things?
So sunglasses block the signal of the brightness of the sun and the UV light from coming into our eyes. And so when we are getting the natural signal into our eyes, the brain's getting the message, oh, there's really bright UV right now, so I need to protect myself. So it makes things like The keratinocytes increase the skin's thickness. We get the melanin production, which is the sunscreen. We get urocanic acid. We get all these things to protect the skin. Now, when we put on sunglasses, we cut off that communication. And so when we cut that off, we are much more likely to get sunburned. So it increases your risk of burns. And I will say that my eyesight, I had gotten LASIK, which is not a good thing to get. Don't get it if you haven't. I had really bad eyes, but I needed glasses after LASIK. And I would drive at night and I needed the glasses to see. I couldn't read signs. My close vision wasn't that good. I literally don't use glasses anymore because I ditched my sunglasses and I'm outside all the time. Our eyes are part of our brain. And so they really, really need lots and lots of infrared light, and they need some signals. I will say the exception for sunglasses is that there's a heavy amount of glare. Glare can cause issues. So on sun, on snow, and on water, if there is glare, you can and should wear sunglasses.
Right.
Okay.
Nice. That's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
What about our poor clients who are shift workers? Are they just completely screwed? I mean, I always feel so, whenever anyone came to me who was a shift worker, I was just like, bless you for doing this work. And I don't even know how I can help. But what are your strategies? Or is it just like, can we kind of hack any of this to help them out?
I mean, we certainly can help, but it really is, like number one, if your client is a shift worker, encourage them to change their job. It will just change their life. It is such a carcinogen because it is so dysregulating to our circadian rhythm. And so, I mean, we can tell them to use blue blocking glasses and, make sure they're getting like a full black room that they're sleeping in to get the melatonin release. I am not a shift work expert, so I don't have the best tools on this. My good friend Molly Eastman, she's a sleep expert, and she's someone. Molly, sleep is a skill. She could be a good resource for shift workers, but it is something that it's really, really hard. I know.
It's so heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
It's so heartbreaking.
I agree.
Oh my goodness. I literally asked the first question out of 15 questions that we were going to go through today. Although we've touched on a ton of things here. What I want to make sure because people are asking more resources, books, etc. And you've got some great resources. So why don't you walk us through what you have available? Because I have a feeling that we got a bunch of people here who are now hungry to dive into this and learn, because these are levers that we can manipulate in a way like it's not costing thousands of dollars in terms of testing and supplements.
It's all free except for the light bulbs and the glasses.
But and these are tools that you then use maybe the light bulbs don't last forever, but they're long-term, very low-cost solutions that can really enhance. So for those clients who are really struggling, both those clients where you're just not getting results, these are some really important questions to start digging into. And this is, these are strategy. I mean, there's so many logistics and, maybe I have you come back for a part 2 where we just talk logistics of how you support clients to actually make this happen. Because I can feel like that's the biggest barrier, right? Is like, oh my gosh,
behavioral
with
change.
My schedule. Like even as you're saying that, I know that I feel better when I exercise in the middle of the morning after I've eaten. Like I perform better, like all of the things. And then there's just and life, right? Like how do we make these things work?
Or
what are some of the micro adjustments,
Also the shoulds in the back of our mind. And if I'm not working out, I'm not doing I'm not doing good for my body. And this is the only time I can work out. So I should take advantage of it because I should be working out. And I would argue that, a lot of times there's a personality type in this that we see end up, it's okay. It takes one to know one. It's all my clients. We're all I'm like, you really working out isn't good for you right now. And they're like, I'm like, I know. And I sit with them and cry with them, but there's I hear what you're saying. Exactly. And it's this behavioral change. But yes, I work from home, but if I'm in a room, I crack the window. I turn on infrared light. I take my screen and I use this stuff called Iris Co. It's a technology where you just turn a lever and the screen, it's like F-Lux, like the screen turns red or amber. So I'm taking the blue out. You can go like this. I have pictures of my inner child on here, so sorry. But you go 1, 2, 3. and then it turns red. So you can set up your screen to turn red with 3 clicks, or if you have an Android, to use the Twilight app. And so there's a lot of ways that we can simply get these things out. It's about, doing it. So I have a program coming out probably by the end of this week. I'm so excited about it. It is called Get That D. It's about vitamin D. It's a silly name, but it is going to be teaching this whole method. Like, you're going to get this whole overview and also really understand all these benefits of the sun, how we can support our clients, and use this methodology of this sort of 5-part getting in the sun in all these different 5 parts, well, the 4 parts and then the darkness piece, and how long for each skin type and all these questions. I also have another program that is coming out after that called the Circadian method, and that is talking about how to just align with light on the day-to-day basis and get out in the morning and the light bulbs and all that stuff. So all these programs are coming out in the next couple of weeks. So I have wait lists to them. I also have my podcast called Light Up Your Metabolism, and I talk about a lot of these things on that podcast. So I just released 2 episodes. One is like a whole more optimal morning routine, and the other one is the evening routine. And so these are you'll get a lot more takeaways of how you can work with your clients with these different practices. And then I also hang out a lot on Instagram, and my handle is Danielle Hamilton Health. And so I teach a lot over there as well.
Excellent. And you have given a great discount. So 10% discount to anyone here who is listening. Clinician is the code to use to get that 10% discount. I just threw your website up as well as your social link. So for those of you who are here, you can grab those there. Thank you for listening live and bringing in your questions. And then for those of you who are listening to the recording, we'll of course include all of that in the show notes. Dani, thank you so much. We could chat all day. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. This has been fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Been fantastic.
Yeah, I feel a little like I monologued a lot, but but there's so much stuff I want to say. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you everybody for joining us live. Thank you for listening in. Go out there and be great.